Welcome to Story Night. Now listen, I'm a yeller, so I'm fine with this microphone. I'm just telling you ahead of time, if you're a soft talker, you got to eat the microphone. And even then, it might not hear you. So we'll let you know. You folks will let them know if they can't hear it. Okay, all right. It's great to see you all tonight. It's great to be back for the second month in a row with a good crowd. How about a round of applause for Kristen and Bailey from the Cloverleaf? And Kitsap Regional Library, Priya and Jose are here. And applause for yourselves for... You know, in the summer I say, you had a lot of other options tonight. But tonight I look out inside and I think, where else were you going to go? Welcome to spring, everyone. I'm Stephen Gardner. I'm the host of Story Night. We are live streaming on my Facebook page, or my Facebook profile. I'm back on Facebook, in case you weren't aware of that. I wasn't put in jail. I was just kicked out, and there's no explanation. And there's no explanation why they let me back on. So that's always going to be an iffy proposition, I guess. We are also recording with the intent of putting this on BCAT. This has been showing on BCAT. I gleeked a little. This has been showing on BCAT. I haven't seen it. I don't have BCAT at my house, but I've been here, so I don't need to watch it as much. But people random, channel surfing, welcome to Story Night. Great to see you. Applause for whoever's watching this in a recording. Anybody here for the first time? Show your hands. Right on. Now, Bridget, technically, this is not your first time because Bridget spoke at the Roxy. But this is the first time here at the Cloverleaf, and you can see what an intimate, nice setting this is. So we'll applaud for you later. Okay, so I'm trying to think, what do we do here? Okay, so for those of you here for the first time, this Story Night is patterned pretty much after what they do on The Moth. 5-minute stories, true, autobiographical, no props, no notes, singing and poetry to a minimum. The story's truths are things we can't fact check, so I can't hook somebody for saying something outrageous because, there's a small possibility that that outrageous thing could be actually true. So sometimes we judge our storytellers publicly. Tonight we'll be doing it privately. There'll be no scoring or any of that tonight. And I've got at least two storytellers who will be here later and asked to come, be last. And I have a couple who have asked to be close to first. By the way, before we do that, I've started sending out a newsletter for Story Night, and I'm limiting it to twice a month, so I'm not clogging up your email, and the rest of them won't be as long as that first one was. But I'm the one critical of that. I haven't heard anybody complaining, which may mean that nobody read it. I don't know. You read it, okay. So who remembers what the theme is next month? Yeah, and what is next month? June? Yeah. Who remembers what the theme is in June? I was counting on you because I don't remember either. So, yeah, I'll have to open up my laptop and look at what I wrote and say, oh, yeah, yes. Okay, so how you get that email is you fill out one of these. And so I'm going to hand one here. And if you're already getting the email, you're welcome to put that on, your name on there and your email address, but don't feel like you have to. And if you can fill it out, pass it that way. So when it gets through this table, go to the next table, and on this table, pass it that way. And at the end of the night or sometime, I'll come get those. All right. So the email lets you know maybe a little bit about the last Story Night, but mostly it looks forward to the next one. My plan is to send one about a week after our event. So next week sometime you would receive one, and then about a week before the next one. So I'm not stalking you. In between each storyteller, we have a way for you to participate anonymously, and that is through the question we asked tonight. And it looks like you are eager to answer this one. Yes?
Headlines and deadlines.
What's that?
Your next theme.
Oh, yeah, headlines and deadlines. All right. Hey. We've had some headlines this week, I think. All right. Yeah. Well, all right. So tonight's question. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Let's see. I got to look at that later because I got to make sure I'm telling it in the right order. Okay. Hey. Nessa and Janae are here. Janae is fresh off the Grand Slam stage at the Moth. Round of applause for Janae. She told that story here once, and we're never going to hear it again. That's right. Okay. When I tried, aha. Okay, I can't miss the aha. We start with aha. When I tried a Medicare Advantage insurance plan and realized it was just a way to sneakily privatize Medicare. Medicare, quote, Advantage, quote, plans to take you off Medicare and onto an insurance plan that costs more and has more restrictive rules. So you've all been warned.
That's mine.
Is that, yeah. I suppose, what?
Don't get scammed by it. That's the way that they're trying to get rid of Medicare.
You heard it here? I'm a few years away, so I'm going to remember that. All right, tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. I suppose it was when my dad walked me into the church for my first wedding. So you're about to get married to your first ex-husband. Okay. We stopped at the back of the church, looked at the man standing at the front next to the priest, and suddenly realized I was fixing to make the biggest mistake of my life. I wasn't wrong. So I take it you went ahead and made that mistake. All right. Okay. Okay. Give me a second here. Okay. Here, and then I think on the back. I hope. Well, that's the way it's gonna go. You know, and when you're writing a story, you cut and paste, you move stuff around. So let's just say that if this doesn't come out right, it was a bad cut and paste job. All right. One Christmas, I regifted a present. 10 people, I think it says, 10 people were watching each person open their gift. On the interior cover of my gift, I had to change the cut and paste job. On the interior cover of my gift, my company had stamped Merry Christmas and the company name. I kept denying that it was regifted. This story, by the way, this story took place before repurposing regifting was accepted as okay etiquette. I'm glad it's accepted as okay etiquette. If you ever get a gift from me, no promises. All right, I'm going to do one more. Our first storyteller tonight is going to be Doug Avery. How about we give him a round of applause? You can applaud at home. We won't hear you, but thank you. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Once in college, my professor made about 10 mistakes on the board in an hour-long class, and I corrected him on every one. On the way out of the class, he said to me, "You really tell it like it is, don't you?" I said, "I wouldn't want to tell it like it isn't." Applause for you. All right, Doug, you ready? Please welcome Doug Avery. Where are you coming up? I'm here to lend a hand.
I appreciate that, Steve. Yeah. Thank you. Oops. I love this theme because I really believe in transparency. which is why I'm going to tell you guys that I volunteered to go first because I got to get out of here as quick as I can tonight because I have a late night doctor's appointment at 9 o'clock. And I know that sounds strange, but movies are good for the soul, so. Doctor Strange. I originally had kind of a different story to tell tonight when I was thinking about what I was going to tell. But then last month, my daughter had her first real high school dance, and I was like floored for like the first time as a dad because she's a freshman in high school, and she came down in a dress that I didn't even know that she owned. And like I was panicking. I started thinking about all the wrong things, like reaching for the shotgun I don't own yet, like all sorts of stuff. And it got me thinking back to when I was in high school and dating and stuff. So I'm going to change the story to a lesson that I learned at a very, very young age that still applies and should apply to absolutely everyone today. When I was in kindergarten, I had my first girlfriend. It was adorable. Like, we sat around her couch, watched way too many episodes of Benji, held hands every once in a while. She only lived a block down the road from me. 2 separate bus stops, though, because, that's the way it worked back then. Between her house and my house was a giant field that my dad would take me nightcrawler hunting in. I don't know if that's an East Coast thing or not, but, it was pretty big when I was a kid. And it was real funny because we would go nightcrawler hunting. She'd join us, and her dad would join us every once in a while. It'd be like this really cute, date, not date, hunting for worms because it's kindergarten. And her dad had this really funny thing. Like, he'd pull up a nightcrawler that would be a little too transparent, literally, and be like, can't get that one. The fish will see right through it. That was good times. Thank you, yeah. It was good times, right? Now, as a kindergartner, we're all susceptible to what we see in the world. So with her visits to her house and with my mom and dad, I seen it all the time. The love, the affection. My dad would walk up to my mom in the kitchen and he'd kiss her on the cheek. And, same thing with her dad. He'd walk up behind and give her mom a hug. And I thought, this is what you do when you really like someone. So this goes on for a couple of months. We're riding the bus together. Her stop is first. And I think, I've seen this 100 times. I think this is acceptable. I'm going to lean and I'm going to kiss her cheek. So I leaned in to kiss her cheek. And she punched me square on the jaw. Yeah, it stung. I cried. I cried like a baby. I got off the bus and my mom was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, she hit me. My mom said, well, what'd you do? And I just tried to kiss her like Dad does. And my mom said, well, son, there's your problem. Give her some time. I'm sure she'll get over it. So fast forward about a couple weeks later, I'm leaning over my bunk bed in my apartment. And I'm talking to my brother as I do. And back in the day, bunk beds were not metal. They were mostly wood all the time. And they had these large wooden bars that kind of held the top bunk up. And mine was a little loose. And I was leaning over talking to my brother, and that bar spun, and so did my wrist, and so did my body, and I hit the floor, and I broke my wrist. Yeah, in kindergarten. It hurt. I cried like a baby again. So I go to the hospital, I get the x-ray done, we determine it's a broken wrist. I get the fun little soft cast at first, and then I get the hard cast, and my mom says, when you get a hard cast, you can get all your friends to go sign it and stuff like that. I said, okay. I know exactly where I'm going. And I walked down to my girlfriend's house, assumed that we were still kindergarten. I don't know. She punched me a couple of weeks ago, so. And I asked her to sign the cast, and she did. And she signed her name was Jessica. She signed it Jessica with a little heart above the I. And I was like, cool. We're all good again. And that is when I learned my lesson that if a woman wants it, she will tell you. And I carried that lesson my entire life, all the way until my first real girlfriend in high school. We went out on a date together. It was a double date. My best friend and my cousin were dating each other. I was dating her best friend. Now, my cousin had been together with her boyfriend for a while. They were super affectionate all night long. It was almost embarrassing. And when the movie ended, we all carpooled together in my best friend mom's car. So that was awkward. And I walked her to her porch, and I really wanted to kiss her. And I had a moment of PTSD. And I said, I'm not going to let this happen twice in my lifetime. So I asked her if I could kiss her. And she said yes. And I did. And that is how I learned, if a woman wants it, she will tell you.
Round of applause for Doug. I have nothing to add. Nothing that comes up right away. I got hurt in a different way in kindergarten, though. I had this girlfriend. She had her best friend. Her best friend was girlfriends with this one guy who was best friends with another guy, picking guys for the teeter-totter. My girlfriend picks the other guy. I go cry to the teacher, and because they're taunting me at this point, saying, you're going to cry. And I was crying, and I went to the teacher, and I said, they're telling me I'm going to cry. And she said, but you are crying. And then later that night, I told my parents about the story, and my parents said, but you did cry. I didn't get any help at all. By the way, we have Story Night stickers that are here on the stage. If you walk by, you can grab one. They're free. Got one. Good job. Deface your car, if you will. Nice, nice. I'm glad I'm not the only one that's walking around. You can use them. Posters? Well, I have. If I'll think about that one. These aren't free. I mean, they're not free to us. By the way, they come out of your tips. So if that's something you want, that's not a bad idea. Okay. By the way, we do have a tip jar up here. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do story night, but it costs a little bit. So if you want a tip before the night's over, great. Some people have applause for you. Yay. Tell us about a time you saw through it. By the way, oh yeah, I did tell you. You're sitting there, so that means you know. Okay, Allison Loris is our next speaker. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. A few people who have seen through my are buried in the backyard. Ask your agent about secret burial plots. Okay. I saw a toy hidden in slime. It was Slimer. Ghostbusters. Nice. Good job. Round of applause for finding Slimer. Come on, let's really applaud that. I think that's okay. All right. That's the one time I'll beg. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Unfortunately, I never see it coming. Story of my life. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. There will be a surprise later, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to be that transparent. No, there is no surprise later. The surprise later is that there is no surprise. And with that, please welcome Allison Loris.
I could tell you that I wore my work apron here tonight because I was just too busy and frazzled to remember to take it off. Actually, it's got really good pockets, but it's just a transparent ploy to advertise. Okay. My story tonight is a little more somber than that. It's just the first thing that came into my mind when I heard the theme. You will eventually see why. My late second husband was a poet. He was bipolar. He had been a heroin addict, but when I met him, he was only drinking maintenance alcoholism, where you go into convulsions if you don't keep the alcohol level in your blood up there. And during the time that we were married, he did become clean and sober, and he had good doctors, and they figured out how to help him deal with the bipolar illness so that he didn't have to self-medicate. And we went through some pretty rough stuff together. And after a while, we realized that we had taught each other what we needed to teach each other, and there was no longer a compulsive element to our relationship, and we were free to go. And we did, because we were very poor, and we lived in a very small house, and we both worked at home, and we were driving each other nuts. So we stopped being married, but we stayed really good friends. And he was clean and sober for 9 years. And at the end of it, a lot of things happened. His next wife after me was just as mentally ill as he was, so it kind of turned into a competition. They couldn't both be sick at the same time, and sometimes they were. But and his next wife after that had never seen alcoholism. And she tended to think that, he could just straighten up and fly right if he tried harder. And that's really not how it works. Well, a lot of different factors and tragedies, including a failure of one of his medications, had started him drinking again. And he was pretty famous in Seattle as a grunge poet. And a lot of rich, ultra-hip people were really proud to say that they'd shot junk with Jesse Bernstein. And that wasn't helping either. And he finally got to the point where, all those years that he had not been drinking, I don't know if you know how alcoholism works physically, but if you reach late second stage, where you're right on the verge of permanent brain damage, and then you stop, when you start again, it accelerates as if you had been drinking that whole time. So when he started drinking again, he was well into third stage, where he had little, if any, control over the need to drink. There was some very serious brain damage, and what he lived for was to write. And he couldn't write very well when he was drinking. He had once when he was younger, and he was famous as a performance poet because his antics when he was drunk were so entertaining. Anyway, he was drinking again. He was using heroin again. And he had a book that he wanted to finish. And he decided that he was going to sober up, whatever. He stayed with me because his third wife was out of town. She painted movie sets. And he got a doctor. He always knew a doctor. He got a doctor to prescribe him the mega B vitamins and the tranquilizers that you need to detox without dying of convulsions. And he detoxed in my house. He gradually decreased the amount of wine he was drinking. And when the shakes started to come on, he took the tranquilizers, he took the B vitamins, and he shook. And then he managed for 3.5 months to stay sober. It was an everyday, ferocious battle. And he wanted to finish that book. Well, then, as I say, all those ultra-hip people who wanted to boast of shooting up with him, they got him. And he got away from the heroin pretty fast, but he was drinking again, and that time he couldn't stop. And there was a group of women around him. There were kind of always a group of women around him because he was very, very charismatic. His final wife and I and some close friends, we took turns sitting with him, watching him, trying to persuade him to go into detox one more time. And he was crazy at first. He was raving. He was calling people up in Alaska and California and telling them how the CIA had set spies on him. So on all the paranoia and the hallucinations. And this went on for about a week, and then he got very quiet, very peaceful. He was still drinking, but just the bare minimum that would keep the shakes off. He was never drunk. He was just very peaceful. And he started to become mystical. He said that the city buildings, street lights and everything were becoming transparent. And he was seeing the ancient forest through them. And he himself became kind of transparent. I don't know any other way to explain it. He was present, and he was extraordinarily kind to all of us who loved him. But he was becoming more and more distant. And then he said he needed to go to Nia Bay for a spirit quest. A friend of his who was a member of the Makah tribe had arranged for Jesse to go and stay with a cousin of his who lived in a trailer in the woods. He was a Vietnam vet, serious PTSD. And we all understood later that Jesse went there where he could commit suicide in peace with someone who wouldn't be shocked by it because he'd seen it all already. Get away from all the women who loved him and were trying to save him. And he did. He pierced both his jugular veins with a knife, and then he knelt on the floor in this cabin. Excuse me a sec. I saw the video that the sheriff's department took when they found him. He was kneeling, and his hands were open, palm up on his knees. And they told me that it would have taken him about 2.5 to 4 minutes to die after he'd pierced his jugular veins. And during that time, he made no attempt to move, to save himself. He used to tell me that he really understood the medieval concept of evil humors in the blood. And I understood that he had died in peace because he felt all the evil that had been done to him, being raped as a 12-year-old in a mental institution by the guards, things like that. All the evil just slowly draining away, and the peace and the beauty of the forest around him as he became transparent.
Thank you, Allison. Round of applause for Allison. So I pulled a name. This person isn't here yet. So. Bridget Young, you're up next. I'll read these I'll read a couple of these. You're fine. You can hang out here. All right. I'll read a couple of these and we'll go right to Bridget. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. When our oldest son was about 6, he showed up with a chunk of hair and his bangs missing. Any other parents out there have stories similar to that? Just part, yeah, I have that. It's a great one. When I asked what happened, he had no clue. He said he hadn't seen anyone cut his hair. Someone must have snuck up behind him, reached around and did it. Wasn't buying it. That's what it says. Saw through that. All right. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. My mother's telling me of her dreams before passing. All right, let's do one more. My dad tells so many puns, now I see them coming and roll my eyes. Dad doesn't even have to finish it. The eyes are rolling. It's an instinctive reaction. All right, please welcome Bridget Young.
It was April 26, 2019, and it was my husband's birthday, and I was very excited because we were getting away for the weekend. And I had a few things to do at work before we got to leave town and head to Portland. So I was meeting with a client named Mr. Strange, and he lived up to his namesake. The year prior, I had gone to list his home. I'm a real estate agent. And the home had been cleaned and staged and professionally photographed, and he had decided at the 11th hour he didn't want to sell it after all. So this was a year later, and I was supposed to meet him at the house, and he was supposed to give me the keys to the home so I could get them duplicated, and we could put the lockbox on. And as you can imagine, I was a little wary. And I'm dressed pretty nicely. I've got some heels on, and this property that I go to is a really cool piece of waterfront property in kind of a historic section of downtown Paulsbo. An older home needs some work, and there's another little house on the property, and then there's this little boat shed down at the bottom. And so I show up, and the tenant who's been living in the house is vacant, but she's there to do the walkthrough with him, and I introduce myself, we make small talk, and he shows up, and I feel my phone buzzing in my pocket, and I pull it out, and I see that my stepbrother has texted me. And I never hear from my stepbrother, Ollie. I love him, great guy, but I just never hear from him. And then I put the phone back away, and I'm continuing to talk, and I'm talking to Mr. Strange and about the keys, and then I feel my phone buzz again. And I look at it, and it's my other stepbrother. It's my other stepbrother, Sam. And the text message is, call me immediately. So this is very unusual. I never take calls when I'm on an appointment. So I walk to a spot in the yard that, and it's spring, and the cherry trees are blooming, and it's a nice day, and I can look down and see the marina down below me. I'll never forget it. And I call Sam. Now, Sam is a very tall, sturdy, stoic firefighter in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can't flap this guy. He's unflappable. So I call Sam, and Sam answers immediately. He says, Bridge, it's your dad. Your dad died. I did everything I could. I got there right away. I had a great heart guy there. He's gone. Your dad died. And I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned, and Sam cries on the phone. Sam never cries. And I'm already in crisis mode. I'm thinking several days ahead. I'm thinking I'm going to have to get down to Albuquerque, and I'm at this appointment, and I need to finish up with Mr. Strange. And so I tell Sam, thank you so much. I love you. I'm going to see you in a few days. I'll make arrangements. I'll see you in a few days. But I'm in total shock. So I go back to Mr. Strange, and the tenant is left, and I must just look odd. And he says, is everything okay? And I said, my dad just died. And there's like a 3-count pause. And he says, well, we should probably make sure these keys work in all the doors here. And I go, okay. So we walk around the property and try all the keys and all the different doors, and I walk down this steep incline down to the boathouse in my heels, and I am just not there. And at the end, he hands them to me, and as we're about to leave, his handyman shows up, and he goes, her dad just died. And the handyman goes, sorry, we're going to clean this roof. You think that's a good idea? I'm like, yeah, great idea. Clean the roof. I take the keys, I climb into my car, I call my husband, and Tony can tell something's off. He's like, B, are you okay? And I said, Dad just died. And he's like, oh, honey, I am so sorry. Sweetheart, get in your car, come right home right now. And once again, in crisis mode, thinking several days ahead, oh, I've got the stuff that I've got to do at the office. I'm not going to be able to leave town until I get these things done. I've got to pick my kid up from middle school. And so I'm like, my mind is racing, and he's like, B, sweetie, just come home. And I said, Tone, I'm going to be home as soon as I can. I'm okay. I need to go to the office. I just have to take care of a couple of things. And then I've got to pick up Luca. B, I can pick up Luca. No, I have to pick up Luca. So I get to the office, I walk in the door, and there's these 2 women that I work with in my office. They're other agents. Both of them are over 70. I've had so many late-night conversations with these women. One had lost her husband 2 years before. The other one, similar messed-up childhoods. And they take one look at me, and they go, oh, my gosh, honey, what is wrong? And I say, my dad died. And they both give me a big hug. I'm still just not in my body yet. And I sit down on my computer and I quickly take care of the things that I need to take care of. And I get in my car and I drive to the middle school where I've got to pick my kid up. And everything is in slow motion. As I sit in my car, the kids are coming out of school and slowly walking across the crosswalk. And the thing about my dad was he was a great guy. He was a great guy. He was very handsome. He was a very well-spoken man. He was a Harvard graduate. He wrote for the Saturday Evening Post. He was very accomplished. Everybody loved him. But I didn't get to grow up with him. He and my mom separated when I was very young, and he let somebody else raise me. And the man who did was not a good man. And so I'm having these weird feelings, and I'm just feeling all this tumultuous stuff, and the door opens, and my big 14-year-old kid climbs into the passenger seat next to me and takes one look at me, and he goes, Mom, what is wrong? And I say, my dad died, and I burst into tears. And I am sobbing. I am sobbing uncontrollably. I mean, I am a very strong person who has been through a lot, and I am a very fierce mom. I have high expectations. I'm very loving. I work a lot. And my kids respect me. I respect them. And my kid is looking at me like he's never seen this before. Mom doesn't have her shell anymore. And as I'm sobbing, he reaches over to me and wraps me in his arms. And I sob and sob and sob until finally that feeling starts to subside, and I'm in my body, and my son asks me, "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" And I said, "You know what, Luca? I am going to be okay. I'm just really confused right now." I said, I'm so sad, but I'm really angry. I'm angry and I'm sad, and I have a lot of regret that I didn't go down for his 80th birthday party, and I'm just having all these confusing feelings. And my son, I talk to him about everything. He gets it. He knows what I've been through. He knows my childhood. And he said, "You know what, Mom? Sometimes something happens to me and I get really upset and I react to it, and I think that I'm not having the right reaction to the situation, and I ask myself, am I a sociopath?" And then I tell myself, no, I am not a sociopath. I am just having my feelings. And he says, "Mom, it's okay to have your feelings." And I look at him, and my heart is so full of love and pride. And I think, hot damn, I have done a very good job with this young man. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Bridget. We're going deep tonight. It's great. All right. Our next storyteller will be Alicia Morales. Okay. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Got an anonymous call, phone call from the Marriott saying, "I want to stay from my previous stay at a Marriott." Joke's on them. I'm at a Best Western. Language. Okay. The first time I met my boyfriend, I slipped off my wedding ring and dropped it in my pocket. He sometimes reminds me that this is probably the person with the first ex-husband, too. I don't know. Hey, Bridget, you got here earlier. Thank you. We have 2 Bridgets tonight, by the way. Okay, they're bonding. Okay, the first time I met my boyfriend, I slipped off my wedding ring and dropped it in my pocket. He sometimes reminds me that he saw the impression of the ring on my finger that day, but decided not to ask me about it. Nice work, boyfriend. All right. Please welcome Alicia Morales.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. So, I don't actually have anything that's immediately related to transparent, but I just had the wackiest encounter, and I was like, I got to talk about it. So here we are. So one thing about me is I seem to attract a lot of people. People love to talk to me. And, have you ever been out to a bar and you don't really have much to do and you kind of strike up a conversation with the person next to you, and that's your bar friend for the evening? That happens to me all the time everywhere. And I don't know if it's just like I have an unassuming demeanor and people are just like, hey, that's the one that wants to hear all of my problems, but I don't know why the Lord blessed me. He just did. So I teach Zumba at one of the local gyms here every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And I had one person sign up this Wednesday, and it was a man. and I'm gonna call him William. I have a man named William. I've never seen him before, and so I was like, okay, well, we'll just see what's up. He's the only person, so we're just gonna have a good time. So I'm waiting to see if this person comes in, and in walks this elder, this experienced man with salt and pepper hair, just came in with a Keep America Great hat and a shirt that had a cat with a do-rag on it who was pouring out some milk that says, "I do it for the homies." And I was like, that's an interesting man right there. That's an interesting man. And so he gets signed into the gym, and the person who's signing him in says, "Enjoy your class." I was like, okay. So I said, oh, William, Well, maybe that's how transparent works into this. I'm not very good at lying or keeping presents. But so William walks in, and he says, so I said, "William, have you ever taken a Zumba class before?" And he says, "No, but in my younger years, I used to be a male stripper, but that's before I met the Lord." And I was like, I said, that's an interesting man right there. That's an interesting man. So I said, all right, this is going to be an interesting evening. Are we ready to go? He's like, yeah. So I put on the warm-up song, and bless his heart. It was just, I mean, literally, please bless his heart. Keep safe. It was just a little too much for him, just a little bit high intensity. So I just wanted to talk for 20 minutes. So, Alicia, did I ever tell you about my wife, Arlene? I was like, no, we just met. Oh, when I met Arlene in Hawaii, it was a gorgeous day. And, I was down there on vacation, and she was too. And we just hit it up. And one day we were picking wildflowers laying out in the field. And she just said, "Can I sing you a song?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And Alicia, do you remember Sandy Patty? I was like, yeah. And he was like, so I tell you, when she just opened her mouth, it just sounded like angels, just like Sandy Patty. And so it is at this moment that there are some key phrases that are being said here. And for those of you who have been to Story Night before, you have possibly heard of, so I grew up in a very Christian conservative household, and that is my base programming. And so whenever I hear those key things, I get activated. And so he was like, I just heard Sandy Patty, and she sang down the Via Dolorosa. I said, "Oh, that's a powerful song. That'll get me moving." He said, "Yes, it'll get me moving too." And so, we were just talking about it, and it was at the end of our 2 weeks, and I decided I probably had to go back home and get a job. And she said that she had to go back to Oregon, and I just said, "Can I follow you home?" I said, "That is the sweetest story." He was like, "Yeah." So then, and I was like, oh man, we're never going to get back to dancing. So 20 minutes later, I said, "Okay, are we ready to try for another song?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." And so he attempts another song, and I think when the Lord, raised him up from being a male stripper, he just took that rhythm from him and was just like, "I do not want you to be tempted, William." And so be tempted no more. And so I was like, hey, as long as you're moving and you're having fun, that's what counts. And he was like, "Alicia, did I ever tell you that my wife, Eileen, she could cook? She could cook real good. That's why I'm in my current predicament." I was like, "Oh, I do know about that." And he was like, "So yeah, the Lord took her in 2018 from the diabetes, but she was such a good cook." And we had all of these adult, and just started going through his whole work history. And it's just like, I've heard of a lot of people trying to talk to avoid work, but going through your whole resume, that's a new one on me. So Zumba is usually an hour long. So he's talked now for about 50 minutes. And so I said, you want to try for one more song? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So I was like, do you remember the Macarena from back in the day? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, let's do it. And bless that man. But you know, he was just giving it his all, and I was just, you know, I was very blessed to have the time with him and to kind of commune and to get to know this person that I probably would never have the chance to know. And so afterwards, he wanted to tell me about some videos that he was watching on YouTube and some of the very interesting new histories that he is learning, and about end times and about the rapture and about kind of like, so like Arlene being a good cook, yeah, I'm with you, man. Like talking about Sandy Patty and the voice of angels, I'm there, and it's just like, you know what's going to happen here soon, God willing. It's like, wow. Zumba was really fun. I hope to see you. I hope to see you real soon. And he's like, yeah, but you know what might happen? And I was like, rapture. And he's like, yeah, you know it. Praise the Lord. So yeah, I don't know why I'm so blessed to have this talent, but I mean, apparently, I'm a conduit for all of your problems, and that's why I love coming to Story Night, because this is home, and I'm so glad to see you all here, and I'm so glad to just have this moment with you. Thank you so much.
So when for this to get on BCAT, I need to edit it and I need to match the sound. Every is staying in there. No, it'll be great. Maybe I'll do this. Every time she says, I'll just put my voice over it saying, William. They'll know something's wrong. I don't know. I can't promise I'll do that. We'll see how I feel when I get to this. But William will never see it. So, yeah, well, yeah. This goes out on YouTube and Vimeo, and yeah, okay. All right, so we don't have that many viewers of Story Night on YouTube, so I don't think William is going to find it. And I'm having trouble remembering which is correct and which is the one I'm supposed to say. So I can imagine how tough it was for you. Round of applause for Alicia. Let's take like a 5-minute break, and we'll come back with more stories. I promise I'll keep it to 5 minutes. So, freshen up, whatever you got to do. Come back. We'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm going to set the timer. All right, as promised, I kept it to 5 minutes. I followed the timer. We want to have we want to let Jose and Priya from the library tell you about their programs, and then we'll get right back into storytelling. We got a few storytellers left to go, so get your story buns ready. All right, Jose and Priya, round of applause.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi. Hi. So much louder. Okay, I'll make it super quick because we have stories to tell.
Really close to the mic.
Wow.
I'm not sure that is enough.
That was good. That was very compelling. Okay, so we have our May Inspire. Hello, everyone. We have our May Inspire in the back as well as the giveaways for all storytellers. So if you tell a story, you get a free book. Same as usual, but for the newcomers, let that be incentive to tell a story. Our May Inspire, which is our catalog of program services and everything library related, is in the back as well as some bookmarks. 2 programs I'd like to highlight at my branch is we started a walking club every Friday at noon. If you are free, come take a walk with me. Super casual, all pace is welcome. Let's get outside. Not in this weather, but maybe in this weather, so bring your raincoat. We also have our ongoing programs every second Thursday of the month, the Anti-Racism Learning Circle. This month we're talking about Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It's a mouthful, but for a reason. It'll be great. Come talk about that. And then lastly, for downtown, our monthly book group is on the fourth Monday. We are discussing The Confession Club by Elizabeth Berg, not Hillbilly Elegy. This is wrong, but it's also an interesting book, so if you want to talk about that, feel free to come also. We won't stop you. So that's what's going on downtown. Jose has some Sylvan Way updates.
Hello, everyone. Wow. So, just a couple of announcements from Sylvan Way. That actually, not a couple, three. The first one is the Sylvan Way book group, nonfiction. This month we will be discussing The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. That will happen on Saturday, May 14th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Yeah, not p.m. Sylvan Way Nonfiction Book Group. This month will be just choose a book centered on the theme Food Customs Beyond American Shore and share it with the group. That will happen on Tuesday, May 17th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then the last one, it will be Enlighten or Kitsap Community Forum. This month, it will be Bicycling the World and Beyond with the McFarlands. For the first time in 2 years, it will be in person, so it will be on St. Paul's Episcopal Church, and that will happen on Friday, May 20 from 6:30 a.m. 6:30 p.m. Wow, I'm out of date. 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. If you need to learn more about our programs, go to kara.org events. There will be a couple of inspires on the back. Also, each storyteller receives a book tonight, so that's there. Have a good night, everybody.
So I want to get you out of here at a decent hour, but the definition of decent is relative. So the good news is we've got a lot of stories, not overwhelming. You're not going to leave here tired. You're not going to leave here wishing you'd had less. Okay, tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. When the Hilton texted me to welcome me and the hotels are reaching out to people, aren't they? When the Hilton texted me to welcome me and my husband for the weekend, thing was, hubby was out of town, I was home with the kids. That sounds perfectly innocent. All right. I always thought that they would check in as Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. Yeah. It's Mike. Oh, okay. Maybe Mike and Alicia. I don't know. She's not here to hear that. Okay. As a teenager, I always told my parents, cliffhanger. Our next storyteller is Bridget Burke. Round of applause. I wanted to give her time to walk up here. As a teenager, I always told my parents on a Saturday night that I was going to a movie. Really, I was going with my boyfriend to the Kitsap Lake Drive-In. So it's still a true story. Eventually, my mom and dad figured out what was going on, and no more movies for this girl. So sorry. What'd you tell them when you came to this tonight? Okay. On a childhood family road trip, my family made a pit stop at a gas station. I was 5 and super sleepy and decided to get some candy by stuffing it in my pocket. As my parents were checking out, they noticed my bulging pocket and asked if there was anything I wanted to buy. I said no, of course, which they obviously didn't believe. It established my reputation as the, quote, family thief, unquote, even though I have not stolen a single thing since, or attempted to. Lesson learned, I'd say. Please welcome Bridget Burke.
So a few years ago, I rented an unfinished storefront in Silverdale, and it was for my rowing club. And to get in and out of this storefront,
Closer to the mic. Sorry.
closer to the, okay.
Right on it.
Thank you. Should I start again? Hi. So a few years ago, thank you, I rented an unfinished storefront for my rowing club. And for us to get in and out, I took off the key lock and I put in a little punch lock. And after about 6 months, I think it was from November to May, they kicked us out, and in went Texas Glad Rags, which is a used clothing store, kind of high-end used clothing store. And so, totally fine, we left, but my little key punch lock was still there. And I decided one day to just drive by and see if it was there, and it was. And I thought, I'm going to go in and tell them, I want my lock back, but I also have access to that store. So I go into the store through the keypad, and I want to talk to the owner or somebody behind the counter, and there's this woman, Frankie, there. She's helping other customers. So I patiently wait next to a rack of, of clothes that it's just kind of water falling down. And I finally get a chance to talk to her, and I said, I'd like my keypad back, and she's like, well, I can't take it off. And then she just stops and looks at me. She looks at the clothes. She looks back at me. And she pulls this thing off the rack, and she said, this is for you. You take this. And I'm like, I'm not going to take this. And really what it was an apron that kind of came up here and had a little ruffle and had a little ruffle there. And this apron, you could say, was transparent. And it also said, sexy doesn't take the night off. And then she said to me, you take that, and you get out of here. You report back to me tomorrow. You take it home. And I'm like, I'm not taking this. And she shoves it in my bag. She grabs my shoulders. She walks me out of my little keypad door. And I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. I get in my car. It's raining. I take it out of the bag, and I look at it. It's $38. And I'm like, I just stole $38. And I turn around. I go back. My little keypad, I go in, and I say, Frankie, I'm not taking this. This is $38. And she grabs it, takes the price tag off, throws it on there. She goes, get the hell out of here right now. Gives it back to me, and I'm like, I guess I'm taking sexy doesn't take the night off home. So I got it in my bag. I immediately forget about it. Totally gone. Go home, no big deal. I get back in my car the next day. I go to work. And I get to work, and I bring Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off to work with me. And yes. So I immediately am like, oh, I can't have Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off with me because I'm a middle school teacher. And I am like, oh my God. I am like, I take it and I immediately put it in my desk in the back behind some files, and I'm like, that's it. I think I did tell a few people and show a few teachers, and I'm like, ha ha ha, and put it back there, out of sight, out of mind. No big deal. And then June rolls around, or no, it wasn't June, it was somewhere in April, it rolls around, and our school is going to be demolished. Now, everyone forget that you know what school was recently demolished and a new school was built. Don't think. Anyhow, I realized, okay, we pack the whole classroom up, everything goes, and I'm like, I'm going to take Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off home I don't know, I just didn't even think about it. And I leave the building the day before they're going to have this big auction. And I figure out, okay, I'll just go back the day of the auction and grab all the rest. And my boss says, nope, you can't go back in the building. Nobody is allowed. This is it. They have, security there. You can't go back in. And I call him at home. I'm like, I need to get back to my desk. I've got some stuff in there. And he's like, nope, it's going to all be auctioned. And now I am in a complete panic because somebody's going to buy my desk, open up the drawer, and see that it's Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off in there. But I think I told my husband this, and he's like, who cares? They're not going to know it's you. And I'm like, well, if you open up the front drawer, it's got all my passwords, and, I wrote them in the front drawer, my name and everything, so I'm like, they're going to know. So I'm going to be the first person in this auction. And I'm going to buy Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off by buying this desk. So I end up going, I'm just like, I brought my friend Ann, and I'm like, you go there, you just open up every drawer, it's like, find this desk. I cannot find the desk. It's gone. I don't know where it went. Did somebody buy it? I have no idea. They've got all my passwords, and anyways. Turns out my desk wasn't nice enough to even auction. And instead, I ended up buying 2 pottery wheels and a kiln. But really, what happened with Sexy Doesn't Take a Night Off is that I went back maybe about a month or 2 later to Texas Glad Rags to tell Frankie this story, to say, hey, I was the auction, the death. And I went in, the keypad was gone, and I asked for Frankie, and they said, she had cancer, and she died. And I thought, I was like, I really wanted to tell her how much fun this whole thing has been. And I realized what made her look at me and be like, you're taking this home with you tonight. And I really think that, her time was limited, and I guess she could see right through me.
Round of applause for Bridget Burke. Our next storyteller is Nessa Goldman. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you when I heard rumors about myself that were not true. Wow. I have to create a story night with the theme rumors. I'd love to hear about this. Please welcome Nessa Goldman.
All right. So I don't really use Facebook. I have 3 friends, and 2 of them are in this room. I use it primarily to actually promote the storytelling that Janae and I do, so shameless plug right there. We host our own event in Squim, and I do a lot of our promoting through Facebook. I don't even use my real name. And recently, after one of our slams, we had a teller who came up and talked about giving Brazilians. And it was a great story, and she ended up winning the evening. And so I was like, you know what, maybe I'm going to throw some videos in there. So I started putting videos on our Facebook page. And shortly after, I get this notification in my email that something I have posted is offensive, and I have been reported. So immediately, I'm like, red flags are going off, and I'm like, oh my God, Squim, of course, so conservative, you can't talk about Brazilians, God forbid. And I click on the link. So as soon as I log into Facebook, I notice suddenly I have a new friend. And when I go to the Story Slam page, there's nothing there. But I go to my page, and there's a very provocative, what appears to be maybe even child pornography. Yeah, on my page. All I could see was like a naked body, and they appeared to be very scrawny. And I'm like, oh my God! And in the moment that I had to realize that, my account had shut down, and my account was disabled. And so I'm like, oh, fuck. I have been, I didn't do this, but somebody has hacked my account, clearly. So I try to go through all the so all of a sudden my account's disabled, so I'm like, okay, my account's been disabled, try to prove my identity. Well, I can't. I am entirely locked out of my account, and I tried, because I don't really use Facebook, I don't use my real name, and so they ask you to upload your ID, and they're not accepting my ID, they're not accepting anything, and Facebook does not care about you, okay? So I'm trying to verify my ID, and it keeps coming back that it's rejected. And so I'm getting really frustrated. About a week goes by. But again, I don't really use Facebook, so I'm like, ugh, who cares? Whatever, I've lost that Facebook account. Well, somebody is still using my Facebook account, because I then get a notification in my email that they are running some phishing ad that is now charging my credit card that I use to run the ads for our storytelling. Yeah, I know. Me too. I was there. We're all here now. And so I am trying not to be, so I now, like, I'm and actually, so as soon as I saw, actually, that the ad had been posted, I contacted my bank, and they're like, well, like, we can't do anything until something's been run. Well, it didn't take long until they had run the ad and charged my card. And again, I'm trying profusely to find a way. I'm looking for phone numbers. I'm like, who can I contact at Facebook? I'm trying to make up my own Facebook emails. I'm like, Mark at support@Facebook. Like, whoever is going to help me. And so, I had to close my bank account. I luckily was going into Seattle where my bank is, and I was able to get a new bank card. And now I'm like, I am in Seattle. Facebook is also in Seattle. And if they're not going to answer my emails, they're going to deal with me to my face. So I went to Facebook headquarters. They are not that hard to find. And if you ever want to know, it's 333 8th Avenue, okay? But Facebook is locked down. So I noticed, though, somebody go into the building, and I sneak in right behind him. And my boyfriend, by the way, as I'm telling him that this is my plan, he's like, please don't get arrested. Please don't get arrested. And I'm like, I promise I'm not going to get arrested. I was thinking first how I was going to get in there. Like, maybe I would say I was going for a job interview, or, I had concocted all these ideas. I'm like, no, I'm just going to be honest. I'm a terrible liar. That's just what it comes down to. And so I go and I talk to security, and I am not the first person who has done this, okay? And they're like, well, the woman who usually deals with people who walk in is not here today, but I'll call her. And he calls her, and he's like, okay, yep, okay. And he's like, you just need to email these people. I'm like, no. I've emailed the people. My emails actually, by the way, are now getting rejected. They even say, like, access denied. I am not even allowed, like, it's mailer demon. Like, I can't even email the people who are supposedly supposed to help me. So I'm telling this to the security guard, and he's like, I'm sorry, like, I really can't. I'm like, just give me the name of somebody, anybody. Just like, how about somebody you don't like? Like, there's got to be somebody here that you don't like. Give me their email. I'll never tell them your name. And he was like, you can't. And I was like, well, what if I just, like, want to talk to someone? And he's like, you can't talk to anybody in here. I'm like, can I talk to them outside? And he's like, sure, it's public property. And I'm like, all right. And so the next guy I see walking through the little turnstile, I'm like, hey there. And he's like, you can't. I'm like, it's okay, we're going outside. And so follow this nice man outside. And ask him if he has a moment to talk, and he's very timid, and he's kind of looking at the ground, but he agrees to speak with me. And so I'm like, trying to tell him my story. I'm like, well, what's your name? And he's like, and I'm like, just for conversational purposes, what's your name? And he's like, and I'm like, John? How about I call you John? And he's like, that'll work. So I'm talking to John, and yeah, poor John, because he had no information or assistance for me whatsoever. And by the time I was done with him, he just kind of was like, I'm sorry, I really can't help you. And so I'm trying anyway. There's another guy who comes out, and he's like, I've got to go pay my parking meter. I'm like, well, I'll walk with you to your car. Like, let's just talk. I'm like, I'm friendly. I really just need someone who will help me. He doesn't want to help me either. And then I see another security guard sitting on the bench outside vaping, and I just go and I sit next to him, and I'm like, hi. You're security. I've already been through this, but, like, maybe you know someone who will help me. And Michael, the security guard, it turns out, is a really nice guy, and he was willing to help me. Now, I am, again, maybe a little foolish and naive, but I was like, you're security, so I'm going to give you a copy of my ID. If you will take a photo of my ID, and here are my emails. And he's like, you know what? I've actually been able to help people with their Instagram accounts. I don't know about Facebook. He's like, he's a little younger than me, so, like, a little too young for Facebook, maybe at this point. But he's like, I can try and help you get your account reset. So he, agreed. And I'm like, will you do me a favor? Please email me either way. Like, look, I'm desperate. I'm asking everybody. Just please email me. And so he agrees to, but I'm still not giving up. I'm not ready to give up yet. And there's another group that's standing there smoking, and they've been watching me pace around and asking everybody. And so I go and I approach them, and their group is just the same thing. We can't tell you anything. Even if we did, like, when we need help with something, I got to email him, and then he has to email her, and then she has to email that guy, and it's all, I'm like, okay, I've got it. I'm like, so the first rule of Facebook is we don't talk about Facebook. And they're like, yeah, pretty much. And I was ready to burn it all down, but they didn't want to. So I kind of gave up, and I was all defeated, and I was ready to just give up, but Michael came through, so Mike, who I have my issues with Mike's too. But that guy And his name was Michael, but I'm biting my tongue with his last name, but if you need anyway. He came through for me. He emailed me. He got my Facebook account reset. Yeah, I know. So, I learned a couple things. Always check who the email came from, because I did click on a phishing link, obviously, the first time around. I never posted anything that was offensive. Turn on your two-factor authentication, and if you do get screwed, I know a guy.
After my 2 weeks and 2 days off of Facebook, I feel so lucky that my experience wasn't like Nessa's. Round of applause for Nessa. I can confirm just from my experience that Facebook does not care about you. Janae Sparks, you're next. I didn't have the same experience. I got booted because I logged in and out a couple of times while I was trying to edit the last video from Story Night, and they thought it looked weird. But you never get any sense that anybody has ever seen anything that you've emailed. They never reach out. And then all of a sudden one day I tried to log in and it worked. I don't know what happened. This is one of the reasons I decided to do the newsletter. And speaking of which, if you're not getting emails from us and you haven't given us your email address, at the end of the room, I see the one over there. There's a place where you can put down your email address. I'll send you a couple of emails a month talking about the next event. Our next event, by the way, is Headlines and Deadlines. Thank you. Thank you for finding that out. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Dad puns and dad jokes are my total vibe at home. So somebody's dad earlier. So that was the eye-rolly one. Remember, they start? Okay. My kids either giggle or groan. Usually it's the latter. They think they can tell when a pun is coming, so this is going to be great, but when you read this, because I'm going to end it with a bad dad pun, oh, I don't get it. I think it's, I'm going to end it with a dad bad pun. Story night. Sorry, kids. All right. No offense, but that was bad. All right. My 5-year-old daughter liked to wear her pants on her head to look like long hair and nothing else on. She was totally naked and transparent. Okay. Please welcome Janae Sparks.
That's good. Can everybody hear me? I feel like this is a very soft mic. So I was upstairs folding laundry, and my 17-year-old son is downstairs with his friends, and I hear a big ruckus. So I'm kind of making my way down the stairs with the folded towels, and they hear that's your old man. And I'm walking down, and they're all looking at the cell phone at Facebook. And he was like, bro, that's my sister. And I'm kind of slowly waiting to hear exactly what is going on. And they were like, I cannot believe your dad said that about my sister, bro. And I'm like, what did he say? Walking around with the laundry basket and the towels, right? What did he say? What did he say? Give me the phone. My son looks at me mortified, and all of the other kids are just like silent. Give me the phone. And I look, and my husband has posted hubbada, hubbada, hubbada underneath the picture. 20 minutes later, my husband comes in the door, and I am flying mad, right? I am pissed. And all the boys, they're still sitting there. And I was like, get out, get out, everybody now. So they all, sorry, Mrs. Sparks, and they all leave. And I'm like, what is this? She's 21, you're 42. Do you not realize how inappropriate that is? He's a mastermind. Immediately, he was like, you've been texting so-and-so. And I'm like, no, I haven't. Go on the defensive. No, I haven't. No. Immediately, it is no longer about him posting on Facebook, hubba-da, to a 21-year-old woman who, of course, is a woman and works at the coffee stand, and that's why she works there. She's just beautiful, right? All of a sudden, it's about me texting somebody else that was business purpose, right? So, huge blow up, kids kick them all out of the house. I've been married 20 years. This is starting to happen. Did not realize what was going on. It was all over my head. So like a week later, was a beautiful day outside, and I forgot my lunch. So I was like, you know what? It's gorgeous out. I've got an hour. I'm going to spend the 20 minutes to drive home, quick get lunch, and drive back. And so I pull up at the house. There's no cars. I'm not expecting anything. And I pull in, and I go into the kitchen, and I hear the shower on in the master bedroom. And my heart drops to my stomach. And I'm like, no. So I round the staircase, and I'm slowly taking steps up, remembering all of the times he has been accusing me of being inappropriate. And who are you dressing up for today? Even though I'm like, me. And my heart sinks when I hear a male voice and I hear a female giggle. And I'm heading up to my master bedroom. And I hear another giggle, and then I hear my 16-year-old son's voice. And while the cold has gone now from my head to my toes, scared that my family is now blown up and divorce is imminent, it's my 17-year-old son in my master bedroom shower with a girl. And I'm like, boom, boom, boom. And he says something to the guy, and she, he. And I said, Jake. Silence. And he says, Mom? I'm like, yeah. Well, what are you doing home? And I'm trying not to lose my shit because I am like freaked out, but at the same time so relieved. I'm like, oh my God, my son's a slut. I'm totally okay. I can deal with this. I can deal with this today. And I just sit there, and it's absolutely, the girl's not saying anything. And I was like, outside now. So I go downstairs. I'm sitting by the pond, a mixture of feeling absolutely nauseous that I want to throw up, hilarity at the situation, and a same old school boy that's going through my head. And I'm like, oh my God, you are so messed. You need therapy. And I'm sitting there, I'm watching the koi, and I'm expecting my son to come out and talk to me. I hear footsteps. It's very bright out. I have my glasses on. The sun is right here. And he's like, Mom. And I start to turn around, and I hear a, hello, Mrs. Sparks. And I'm thinking, what? You got some serious cojones to come out here after you've been in my master bedroom shower. And I turn around, and I was like, Chloe? And she was like, hi. And I was like, I don't think I've seen you since you were like 6. And she was like, I know, I'm in town for the summer. And I'm looking at my son like, oh my, what Twilight universe am I in right now? What is going on? Like, I'm sorry, if I ever was as a teenager caught in a boy's shower, I certainly wouldn't be like, hello, Mrs. Sparks. So I'm like, hi. And at that point, threw me off my game. I had no idea what to say at this point. I just basically stood up, grabbed my purse and my keys. I still hadn't eaten, and was like, my bathroom, my bedroom. And then I left. And on my way home, on my way back to work, I just kept thinking to myself, okay, my family didn't blow up today. I'm not getting a divorce, and my son's a slut. Thank you.
Janae Sparks, everyone. Anytime I'm in trouble, I'm going to open with, hello, Mrs. Sparks. Vadim Kogan, you're next. Round of applause for Vadim. All right. Tell us about a time you saw through it. By the way, wait, let me stop. Nessa and Janae host the Out Loud Story Slam. They alternate between Port Angeles and Sequim. The next one is in Sequim, I believe. On May 20th, the theme is... Wait a minute. I know it. No, I don't know it. What? Oh, growth. That's right. Yeah, I didn't know it as well as I thought I did. The theme is growth. It's a fun night. They have a great event, so I highly recommend it. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. When at 23, my father insisted I buy a youth lift ticket at the ski hill. The cute lifty called me out. You're not 17. What year were you born? I stammered, and my father kept saying, 88. I was mortified and went to purchase a full-price lift ticket. Because you got caught. All right, please welcome Vadim Kogan.
Hi, everyone. It's been a long time, I think about 2 years now, since before the pandemic that I've been up here. This story, so disclaimer before I start this story, everything turned out okay. I've got a fulfilling career. I'm happy where I'm at in my life. But I'm going to tell you about the highest high and the lowest low I had in my career. That happened about 3 weeks apart. And a vacation funded by the King of Dubai. So when I was 23, I won a really prestigious internship, and I got to work with a professor at Harvard Medical School. And at that time, I had really strong imposter syndrome. I just finished undergrad. I was just beginning grad school. The professor I was working for was working on getting more funding for his research. Somehow, at the same time, the King of Dubai was building a new part of the city called Medical City. And what better university to have in Medical City than Harvard University Medical School? So we offered my boss a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, to open up this new center. And I, during my internship, had to help him do it. So I got to go to Dubai, all expenses paid by the king. It was one of the weirdest experiences of my life, and I knew at 23, I peaked. There's no way anything ever is going to hit this level again. When we touched down, the hotel that I was staying at had been built 3 weeks earlier. And if you know, so my name is Vadim, and the guy at the front desk who was seeing me was also named Vadim, and I was his first customer. So when he saw me, he was like, wait, Vadim? I'm Vadim. This is great. I'm going to upgrade you, Vadim. You're going to have a great experience here. So he gives me, and only me, not even my boss or any of my coworkers, the key card to the penthouse suite at the top of this 50-story hotel that had just been built 3 weeks ago. I'm 23. I'm now on the 50th floor of the Regency overlooking the center that's still under construction. Every morning I get to have breakfast there alone with 4 people just waiting on me, staring at me, waiting for me to order something. When they had finally gotten the center ready, and this is the tangential transparency connection. The king, he's got a pretty strong cult of personality. If you've ever been to Dubai, you can see behind most front desks at hotels, you'll see the king's portrait, his sons, and you see that everywhere in taxis, like hanging off the rear view mirror, stuff like that. The center had a 5-story tall, transparent banner of the king's face that I walked through every morning to open up this new center. This internship, I was promised at the end of it, if I did a good job, I would have a job at the medical school, which I was really banking on. I was so excited. I was almost, kind of halfway through grad school. I wanted to have this job. 3 weeks later, I got laid off. And they told me it was because they didn't have enough funding, which I know isn't true. But right after that, I'd been banking on this job so much I didn't have really a plan B. I had no idea what to do. I was just about to finish my studies for the year, and I realized that I couldn't make rent. I needed a job. My parents wouldn't help me. I was on my own. I got a quick job at a cafe, and after about a month of being overseas, the cafe that I was at was close to where my old boss used to work. And he walked through the doors, and I had to serve him his latte that morning. And his face when he saw me was like confusion and disappointment, and my face. I got so depressed after that experience, I got fired from the cafe 5 days later. And the boss was just like, yeah, Vadim, it's just, you're just kind of a drag. Like all these other employees, like you're just bringing the energy down. I don't know if we can keep employing you. So then I was broke with no job and no money, and I couldn't make rent. I begged my parents for anything, and they gave me just enough to cover rent for 1 month. And they were like, if you can't make a job work after this, you're done. It's over. You're moving back home. I had that week. I worked at a bike shop. I worked as a rock climbing instructor. I finally slowly got on my feet, crawled out of the hole over the course of like a year and a half, 2 years, where I was doing these menial jobs trying to get out. And I finally got a job like after I graduated with a public health department afterwards. But it was about a 4-week span where I was like, I've peaked. There's no way anything can get any better. And then down to, and I was 25. It was my quarter-life crisis. All started with the king of Dubai and his 5-story tall face. Yeah. Thank you.
Vadim Kogan, everyone, round of applause. We got one more story. It's going to come from Priya Cherry. Until then, thank you for sharing all your stories tonight. These have been great. And if I haven't responded well to them, hey, I'm still working on it. All right. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. That time my first husband started talking about what a, quote, interesting woman his friend's wife was and how his friend didn't treat her right. I was supposed to sympathize? Make sure I didn't read this one already. I think I did. Yes. Okay. All right. When my 9-year-old son told me he didn't take the restaurant salt and pepper shakers that were sticking out of his pockets. Pretty good sign that he actually did it. That's some good sleuth in there. Tell us about a time you saw through it or someone saw through you. Yoga pants. I don't have to read any more, but there is more. So remember, we said yoga pants. Girl. For reals. Bend over in front of the mirror before you leave the house in see-through pants. Sounds like solid advice. Please welcome Priya Cherry.
So I'm not as funny as Vadim, so that's a hard act to follow. But I can attest, he is my partner. I met him after he got that, before he got that, the new job that lifted him out of the stupor, and it did a lot to change the mood. So, no, my story is about the first time I could see clearly in my life, because I basically grew up wearing glasses. I got my first pair when I was like 8, and my prescription has gotten steadily worse ever since. So by the time I was about 25, they were, I don't drink a lot of soda, but I think they were Coke bottle glasses, I was told. Very, very thick. So my aesthetic also as a young adult was thick-framed glasses, because nothing was strong enough to hold up my thick lenses. I thought it was a pretty good look. But the opportunity I got to not have that happen anymore was at 25, I got a fellowship to go work at a nonprofit in India. The nonprofit was disability focused, so I worked a lot with disability advocates, and specifically a lot of visually impaired disability advocates. And so I had this connection with this local Eye Institute, the LV Prasad Eye Institute, in the town where I was working. They do a lot of really great nonprofit work to support those in need who can't afford like cataract surgery and stuff, but they also have a full-service eye hospital that does surgeries like LASIK. And they train a lot of really great doctors who then move abroad. So my eye doctor I grew up seeing in Connecticut actually was trained at that hospital. So when I told her I was going to Hyderabad in India, she was like, go to LV Prasad and get your LASIK there because it's more affordable and they're really good. So I ended up going to this eye hospital, and I am in India like on my own. I don't really know a ton of people except for my roommates who I live with, who are these girls that I met there, and they're very, very nice. But I'm like, I'm going to have my eyes surgery, so can one of you come pick me up after? It's like, I got to get in a rickshaw to go home, and they can tell I am fresh. And this was after about 8 months of living in Hyderabad, but still, I just want to make sure I'm not like shipped off to the wrong part of the city. So I went to the eye hospital. Everyone is super nice. They can tell I'm American. They're like, are you a medical tourist? And I was like, I live here, so I don't think so, but maybe. But I'm terrified because I never had surgery before, anywhere, ever. And I don't know if any of you have had laser eye surgery. It's kind of weird, right? Right? So I will tell you, first off, the whole thing was really quick, but about 2 minutes after, they're like, all right, you're done having had lasers to your eyes. You like blink a little bit, and I can read the sign across the room, which was the wildest thing, except that you want to cry because it's emotional, but they're like, please don't cry because your eye flaps are flappy. But the wildest thing I've ever, I won't go into detail because we've just eaten, and it is a little, if you don't know what laser eye surgery is like, don't look it up on YouTube. It's gross. But basically, your eyes are misshapen if you are nearsighted, and so they have to shave off a bit of the front to clear that up. So the weird thing is you can see the whole procedure being done because they have to lock your eyes in place, and you can't move, you can't look around, which is horrifying at first. But then, like, I am a very visually motivated person. I love to do visual art. I love colors and shapes and movement, and that fan turning is just a really cool thing to watch. But there were, like, really vivid colors the entire time. I saw, like, the most vibrant, like fuchsia purple that I've seen in a really long time, and like little pulses of green off to the periphery, and like a red that was very scary at first, but then kind of felt like, oh, like maybe this is what it's like in the womb. I don't know. Weird. But the whole experience was very trippy. I've never done any sort of psychedelic drug, but I suspect it's quite similar to what that was like, except for a mild undercurrent of fear, because if you move your head, it might mess the whole thing up. So got the surgery. It worked just fine, but it makes you very light sensitive for the several days, week afterward. And I was working in an office with all of my nonprofit friends, very stark lighting and very blunt coworkers. I had to work on my laptop most of the time. I was doing a lot of web design. So I had these sunglasses that I had brought from home that were like the Ray-Ban Club Masters. They make you look like a cool jazz musician from the 50s. And so I'm wearing these sunglasses into work the next day, and most women will wear like a scarf either around their head or around their neck. So I have this headscarf around, tied, and these big sunglasses. And I walk in the next day, and they're like, "Oh, Miss Movie Star, what is happening?" And I'm like, "Please don't talk to me. I can't see. I'm really cranky. I'm terrified. Let me go sit in my corner." And So it was overall fantastic experience because I can see, I can run, I can swim, I can bike, I can do all the good stuff, which felt a little uncomfy at first because you grow up with this thing on your face and you're like, this is part of my personality, right? Like I can't wear a fun frame anymore. So that was in 2018. Flash forward to last month, I had my first eye checkup since then. It's been a little while. And the surgeon way back when had told me, like, hey, we might not be able to correct your eyes all the way because you're so jacked up. So just be aware, you might still have to wear glasses at some point. And I was like, yeah, okay. Some doctors, right? Like, tell me you can fix my eyes. But they did a fantastic job. I can see clearly. And so I go to check my eyes last month here, Kitsap Eye Physicians. Wonderful. The doctor had great bedside manner, and he was like, okay, so here's your prescription for your new glasses. And I'm like, okay, how bad is it though? Because I had a -8 on this side and -9 on this side. And he was like, oh, it's just -0.5. Just wear them when you're driving at night. And so I got to pick out my first pair of glasses again after only a few years, but it felt like a long time, which is cool because they are so lightweight. I can wear wire-framed glasses now, and it's like a whole new me. So it just kind of changes the way you see.
Round of applause for Priya. So we're gonna close up here in a minute. I'm gonna take this flag down and I'm gonna drape it over that table over there and bring some cloth pins. If you have not signed this flag, I would love for you to sign it. It'll be, hopefully the signatures will be growing, and someday I'll get some light-colored pens that can go on the blue. That will happen at some point, or you might want to gamble with it tonight. That's fine. Round of applause, first of all, for Kristen and Bailey from the Cloverleaf. To Priya and Jose from Kitsap Regional Library. Storytellers, make sure to go grab a book on your way out. Round of applause for our storytellers. And next month, I believe the date is June 2nd. Again, the theme is headlines and deadlines. A round of applause for all of you for coming to listen. Thanks for listening. I look forward to hearing your story. See you next month.